At exactly midnight, the prison K-9 started barking at nothing but a blank brick wall. Night after night, the guards laughed until the wall started to move. What they uncovered next, it was a secret so dark, it had been buried for nearly a century. Welcome to Woof Woof Stories. Let's uncover what really happened. The late-night shift settled over Ironwood Penitentiary like a cold, heavy blanket. The corridor lights flickered in muted rhythm, casting long shadows that danced across the concrete floor. At precisely midnight, Garcia lifted his flashlight and swept it across the row of cells, its beam catching the glint of steel bars and the dull gleam of locked doors. Beside him walked Ajax, a muscular German shepherd with cropped ears and a coat as dark as the night beyond the prison walls. Every night at this hour, Ajax halted before cell block D, his hackles rising. Tonight was no different. The dog's low growl vibrated through the hush of the cell block, echoing off stone and steel. Garcia tightened his grip on the flashlight and peered at the wall where Ajax stared, an expanse of aged red bricks, each one telling stories of decades past. Yet something about the surface made even Garcia's veteran heart skip a beat. He placed a hand on Ajax's collar. "Easy, boy," he murmured, voice taut with curiosity. Ajax whimpered, his gaze locked on a single section of mortar that seemed to shift beneath the flashlight's glare. Garcia knelt, inspecting the row of bricks at eye level. He traced a finger along a seam that looked too straight, too deliberate. The bricks rattled under his touch, as though something pulled just beneath. A distant clang from the control room shattered the silence. Ajax jerked his head toward the noise, then back to the wall, teeth bared. Garcia rose slowly, muscles tense. He signaled Ajax to stay and edged back, jaw clenched. He clicked his radio, voice low. "All clear over here, but Ajax is fixated on Block D. I want an extra patrol around this area." As he waited for a response, Ajax's barking started again, short, staccato bursts. The dog backed away, ears pinned, as if whatever lurked behind the bricks had finally made itself known. Garcia's breath caught in his throat, the beam of his flashlight trembling. In that moment, the midnight sentinel, the prisoner, the guard, the dog, stood poised on the edge of a secret long buried within those shifting bricks. The clang of the heavy gate echoed down the corridor long after the last prisoner's footsteps faded. Night had deepened, and the hush inside Ironwood felt thick enough to swallow sound. Garcia paused at the end of the hall, adjusting his flashlight's beam as Ajax pranced ahead, nose low to the ground. The dog's restlessness had not waned. Every few steps, he would lift his head and let out a brief, urgent howl that reverberated against the stone walls. Garcia frowned and glanced at his watch, 1:13 a.m. Another hour into the shift, and something in Ajax's behavior told him it wasn't boredom. The K-9's ears twitched at distant echoes, and his muzzle lifted, nostrils flaring as if the dog sniffed an invisible breeze. They approached the threshold of cell block D again. With each step, Ajax's pace quickened. He let out a series of rapid barks, each one more insistent than the last. The dog's eyes were fixed on the dead-end wall at the block's far end, just beyond the last cell. Behind that wall lay nothing but solid brick, or so the guards believed. Garcia's pulse quickened as he raised his flashlight beam. He knelt beside Ajax, feeling the coarse fur under his palm. "What is it, boy?" he whispered, voice strained. Ajax leaned into him, still barking, nails scratching at the concrete. The dog's growl rolled low in his throat, filled with a tension Garcia had never heard before. A faint vibration hummed through the ground, almost imperceptible. Garcia placed his fingertips on the floor, sensing the tremor. He shone his light on the wall. The brick's surface looked smooth, but a thin layer of dust lay in patchy patterns, dust that had settled unevenly, as though something disturbed it recently. Garcia rose, voice tight. "Control, this is Garcia. I need a maintenance team down here stat. There's something wrong with the Block D wall." The radio crackled, then confirmation. A team would be there in 15 minutes. 15 minutes of Ajax's restless howling echoing through the night. As Garcia stood, Ajax bolted forward, hackles raised, eyes wide. His howl soared, piercing the stillness like a siren. The wail carried questions older than the prison itself. What had been hidden behind that brick barrier, and why was Ajax so determined to expose it now? The maintenance crew's footsteps clattered down the corridor, but Garcia's attention remained fixed on the wall at the end of cell block D. Ajax paced beside him, ears pricked, and eyes flicking between the guard and the bricks. A single bare bulb overhead cast trembling shadows that danced across the surface, forging strange, angular silhouettes that seemed to shift with every flicker. Garcia raised his flashlight and swept its beams slowly across the mortar. The wall's texture, once uniform, was now warped by those undulating shadows. From certain angles, the bricks appeared to protrude, forming a vague outline, perhaps a doorway long sealed or a cavity that swallowed light. Ajax gave a low, resonant growl, each cord vibrating through Garcia's own legs. A maintenance worker knelt, running a finger along the seam between bricks. He frowned. "This doesn't look natural," he muttered, voice hushed. He tapped the mortar gently with a small hammer. The sound was hollow, a dull thud that echoed like a heartbeat. Garcia stiffened at the noise, the shadows stretching as if stirred by the vibration. He crossed to stand beside the worker, peering down at the spot. A thin crack traced a jagged path along the red brick, and through that fracture, darkness deeper than the surrounding gloom winked. Ajax barked sharply and retreated 2 paces, tail stiff. The shadows leapt higher, claws of darkness reaching like fingers. Garcia swallowed hard, the air suddenly cooler against his skin. He shone his light closer, revealing an irregular gap just large enough to thrust a hand inside. He hesitated, fingertips brushing the void, feeling a rush of stale air exhale as though something within had sighed. The bulb overhead sputtered, and with it, the shadows recoiled, retreating into the fissure. Ajax's coat shimmered in the flashlight glow as the dog darted forward, sniffing at the gap with fervor. Garcia steadied himself against the wall, heart pounding. Whatever lay behind those bricks had begun to stir, and the shadows on the wall were only the first sign that its silence was about to be broken. Dust motes drifted through the narrow opening as Garcia knelt on one knee, flashlight trained on the void beyond the bricks. Ajax hovered at his shoulder, ears flat, silent now, as though the dog sensed footsteps no guard could hear. The maintenance crew backed away, their faces pale beneath the dim corridor lights. Garcia slipped his arm inside the gap, fingers brushing against cool metal. His hand came to rest on a rusted latch, hidden from view until now. His breath caught. Latch and hinge belonged to something buried decades ago. With a slow tug, the mechanism groaned, and a panel of bricks shifted inward, revealing a narrow crawlspace behind the wall. A wave of stale air washed over him. It carried faint echoes, distant voices, the clang of chains, the shuffle of weary feet. Memories of Ironwood's darkest days, forgotten riots, whispered prayers of condemned men, seemed to leak from the masonry. Garcia swallowed, tasting dust and time. He directed his beam inside. The tunnel was just wide enough for a man to crawl, walls lined with old iron supports and web-like cobwebs. Footprints in the thin layer of dirt hinted at passage, recent perhaps by someone escaping or returning. Ajax pressed closer, nose quivering. Garcia shone the light down the corridor, boot prints, shod and bare, leading deeper into shadow. The distant radio chatter from the maintenance crew fell silent. Everyone held their breath as the echoes of the past called out from the darkness. A soft sob, a ragged breath, the faint scrape of metal on stone. Ajax let out a single whine, low and mournful. Garcia hesitated. Codes and protocols forbade official exploration of hidden passages, but the weight of those muffled sounds left him no choice. He clipped a spare flashlight to his belt and clicked on his radio. "Control, this is Garcia. I'm going in. Backup, stand by at the entrance." He paused at the threshold, glancing back at Ajax. The dog met his gaze, eyes dark pools of loyalty. Garcia nodded once, then lowered himself into the crawl space. The bricks shuffled closed behind him with a muffled thud. In the swirling half-light, he pressed forward, every heartbeat matching the rhythm of footfalls long silenced, every breath a summons from history demanding to be heard. Garcia's flashlight bobbed as he crawled through the tight passage, each inch bringing him deeper into the prison's underbelly. Dust-coated beams overhead creaked with age, and the air grew colder, carrying a dampness that clung to his uniform. Ajax's nails clicked softly behind him, the dog's presence a steady reassurance against the weight of darkness. The narrow corridor opened into a wider chamber. Garcia rose to his knees and swept the beam across a small alcove carved into the stone wall. There, half hidden by a fallen flagstone, sat a weathered iron plate etched with a circular indentation, a keyhole. The metal gleamed dully, as though polished by unseen hands over countless years. Garcia ran a finger over the grooves. The iron was warm to the touch, inexplicably so in the frigid, stagnant air. He knelt and peered through the keyhole. Beyond it lay a pitch-black void. The chamber held no windows, no other entrances, only the promise of secrets locked away. Ajax pressed his head against Garcia's hand, nudging him gently. The dog's brown eyes reflected the flashlight's beam, urging Garcia forward. He reached into his pocket and withdrew the old brass key he'd found earlier in a misplaced set from the guard office, a key with no apparent lock, until now. The metal teeth clicked into the keyhole with a resonant clang. Garcia paused, heartbeat hammering before turning the key. The plate shuddered, then swung inward on hidden hinges, revealing a small recessed niche lined with iron hooks. Hanging there were dozens of tarnished keys, each tagged with faded numbers and letters, D47, Block C12, Ward 9, and more. Garcia's breath caught. These keys weren't issued in living memory. They were relics of Ironwood's earliest days, relics believed lost or destroyed. He examined one marked Secret 01. The tag was almost illegible, but beneath the rusted surface, he made out a single word: freedom. Ajax growled softly, the low rumble vibrating through the chamber. Garcia realized the implications. Each key unlocked something buried deep within Ironwood's hidden architecture, and one of them promised a door to the outside world. He slid the key from its hook, feeling its weight, and looked down the dark corridor beyond. With every locked secret now within reach, Garcia understood the choice before him. Safeguard the prison's darkest mysteries, or use these keys to unravel a legacy of confinement that had stifled too many lives. The hidden keyhole had given him freedom to decide. The clank of distant footsteps snapped Garcia back to the present. Ajax stiffened beside him, ears tilting toward the entrance of the secret chamber. Garcia blinked the dust from his eyes and tucked the freedom key into his pocket. He moved silently back into the crawl space, guiding Ajax ahead. The narrow tunnel's walls trembled with each footstep above. Inmates on patrol or staff doing rounds, unaware of the hidden passage beneath their feet. Garcia's pulse pounded as he crawled toward the light spilling from the corridor. He emerged just in time to see two guards rounding the corner of cell block D, their boots echoing hollowly against the concrete. Neither noticed Ajax's paws slipping through the crumbling bricks or Garcia's shadow melding with the wall. The dog's quiet panting was the only sound breaking the rhythm of the guard's patrol. Garcia pressed against the cool brick, counting his heartbeats as the guards passed. They spoke in low tones about a recent prisoner transfer and the new warden's insistence on tighter security, ironies he noted with grim humor. Footsteps faded, and Ajax exhaled, tail brushing Garcia's leg. He tapped the wall twice, the signal to step back into the crawl space. Garcia ducked inside, edging the bricks closed behind him until only a faint seam remained. But as he turned, Ajax barked once, sharp and urgent. Garcia turned his flashlight back on and swept it across the corridor. A lone inmate stood at the end of the hall, face half hidden under a hood. The man's eyes glinted in the beam, and he raised a gloved hand, tapping a sequence against his leg. 3 taps, a pause, 2 taps. The same pattern Ajax had used when first he alerted to the wall. Fear and recognition shot through Garcia. The inmate vanished into the shadows, footsteps fading down a side passage. Ajax growled low, as if acknowledging kinship or conspiracy. Garcia's mind raced. Someone on the inside knew of this passage. Someone was using Ajax's vigilance to send messages. He slid his hand to the pistol at his hip and whispered to Ajax, "We're not alone down here." The dog's low growl grew in volume, echoing through the still corridor as the true inmate conspirators began to reveal themselves. Dust settled in the corridor air as Garcia and Ajax slipped back into the crawlspace. The faint hum of distant televisions and muffled voices reminded Garcia of the world above, a world that had no idea of the hidden labyrinth beneath its prison walls. He pressed forward, careful not to disturb the loose mortar, each step stirring decades of secrecy. The tunnel branched after a few yards, revealing 2 rusted iron doors, pitted with age and chained shut. One door bore a faded plaque reading "Archive," while the other was unmarked, its surface scarred by countless scratches. Ajax sniffed at the archive door, whining softly. Garcia knelt and examined the chains. Heavy-duty links looped through iron eyelets, secured with a massive padlock stamped with the prison's old crest. He lacked the tools to break it, except for the keys from the hidden niche. Garcia retrieved the D-47 key from his pocket, the tag's embossed letters dull but legible. He slid it into the padlock, the teeth clicking precisely into place. With a twist, the lock released, and the chains clattered to the floor. Ajax barked once, eager to explore. Together, they pushed the archive door open. Inside lay rows of metal filing cabinets, overturned documents, and crates stamped confidential. Faded photographs of past wardens hung crooked on the walls, their faces emboldened by age. Papers fluttered to the ground as Garcia's flashlight beam landed on a crate marked Block D Excavations, 1923. He pried it open and found blueprints of Ironwood's original design. Hidden cell blocks, service tunnels, and, most alarming, a series of subterranean holding cells that had been expunged from official records. Footnotes in the margins spoke of failed escape attempts, interrogations, and disappearances. Those cells lay directly beneath the wall Ajax had first barked at. Garcia's breath caught. Secrets had been buried here, people sealed away, forgotten by time. He traced a finger over the blueprint lines, imagining the fear of prisoners trapped in those hidden chambers. Ajax paced, nose to the floor, as if tracking phantom footsteps. Garcia shut the crate gently and stood. "We need to document this," he whispered, voice tight. Ajax barked in agreement, tail staccato against the stone. As they prepared to retrace their path, Garcia felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. He now held proof of Ironwood's worst sins, buried beneath layers of brick and lies. And with that proof came impossible choices, or consequences that would shake the prison to its core. Garcia emerged from the crawl space with documents clutched under one arm and Ajax's leash in the other hand. His uniform was streaked with dust, his flashlight beam catching motes that drifted in the stale air. In the guard station, flickering monitors displayed empty corridors and cell blocks. The chatter of guards at their consoles felt distant, like echoes from another world. He approached Sergeant Morales, who glanced up from a security feed with a nod. "All clear on the cameras," Morales said, voice casual but eyes narrowing when he saw Garcia's state. "What happened down there?" Garcia swallowed and laid the blueprints and photographs on the desk. "We found hidden chambers beneath Block D," he said, voice low. Morales reached for a printout, jaw tightening as he scanned cryptic notes dating back to the 1920s. The sergeant's fingers hovered over the plans. "This isn't just an old storage tunnel. These are holding cells, unmarked off the books." His tone betrayed unease. He dropped the papers and leaned back. "If this gets out..." Garcia met his gaze. "I know, but someone needs to know. People went missing down there. Silence stretched between them. The low hum of the security monitors filled the void as Morales turned away, rubbing the back of his neck. Ajax sat silently at Garcia's feet, head tilted, as if judging their conversation. Morales cleared his throat. "We'll need to bring this to the warden." His voice cracked on the word, betraying his discomfort with exposing the prison's darkest chapters. "But be careful. Upsetting the chain of command could backfire." Garcia nodded slowly, weighing loyalty against justice. He glanced at Ajax, steady, watchful, and felt resolve harden in his chest. "I'll handle it," he said. Morales simply watched, the weight of unspoken truths settling over him. He didn't offer reassurance or solidarity, only a reluctant nod. Ajax whined softly, and both men turned as the dog padded toward the office door, ears pricked. Garcia gathered the files and followed Ajax into the corridor. His footsteps were firm, yet his mind raced with questions. Which higher-up would cover this up? Who had ordered those prisoners silenced? And most pressing, could he trust anyone to help him reveal the truth? The guard's uneasy silence rang in his ears like a warning. In Ironwood Penitentiary, some secrets guarded their silence fiercely, and those who dared unearth them risked being buried alongside the lies. The next evening, Garcia made his rounds alone, determined to gather any more clues before reporting up the chain. Ajax padded quietly at his side, ears swiveling as they passed the rows of cells. The prisoners, shadows behind bars, watched the pair with curious eyes. Approaching cell 213, a block known for its older inmates, Garcia heard a faint rasp of voice, a whisper carried on the stale air. He halted, shining his flashlight through the bars. An aging man with a lined face and silver hair peeked up from the corner. "Guard," the inmate croaked. "You're the one looking at those old bricks, aren't you?" His eyes gleamed with something more than curiosity, almost relief. Garcia flicked the beam toward the bricks at the cell's far end. "What do you know about it?" he asked, voice low. Ajax sat by his side, alert. The man cleared his throat, glancing around as if the walls themselves might be listening. "In '68, they sent a dozen of us down there," he whispered. "Simple riot, some guards died. But they opened those hidden cells and hauled us below. Didn't see sunlight for weeks." He shivered. "We called it the Black Vault." Garcia's heart thudded. "Why?" The inmate's eyes dropped. "To break us," he said. "We were forgotten, left in darkness as punishment. Some never came back." His whisper trailed off like a fading echo. Across the block, another voice joined, a younger inmate, lean and watchful. "They'd give us crumbs through cracks in the bricks," he rasped, stepping forward. "If we tapped right, we could hear other cells." Whispers through the bars told us who survived. Garcia swallowed, the weight of their words settling like stones in his gut. Ajax growled softly, the dog's gaze fixed on the wall. The older man whispered again, voice trembling. "There's a junction deeper in where the tunnels split. One way led to freedom. They forgot to lock that door after the riot. The other to a dead end and worse." Garcia stared at the inmate's hollowed eyes. "Where?" The man hesitated, then tapped the bars 3 times. Garcia tapped back twice. Ajax whined, stepping closer. The older inmate nodded, tapping 2 more. Garcia lifted his flashlight higher. "I'll find it," he promised. As he turned away, the whisper of voices trailed behind. The ghosts of those who had whispered through the bars, their secrets begging to be heard once more. The corridor beyond cell block D was silent except for Garcia's boots and Ajax's steady pads. Each step echoed against the concrete, the dog's low growls punctuating the hush. Garcia paused at the base of the wall, where Ajax first alerted him. He knelt, tracing the mortar lines with his gloved fingers. Underneath the dust, the mortar looked fresh in places, an odd patchwork amid century-old bricks. He tapped gently, listening for hollow chords. One brick rattled softly under his knuckles, revealing a narrow seam that hadn't been there before. Ajax whined and pawed at the bricks. Garcia rose, shining his flashlight higher. The beam revealed 3 bricks with seams too uniform, too deliberate to be random settling. He tapped one with the butt of his flashlight. It shifted inward. Suddenly, the wall trembled, an imperceptible quiver at first, then a low rumble that rattled loose dust from overhead pipes. Ajax barked, tail stiff. Garcia steadied himself, heart racing. He pried at the loose brick, levering it free. Behind it was a small cavity carved into the mortar, just large enough to hide something. Inside lay a tarnished metal cylinder, its surface etched with tiny symbols: a coiled serpent, an open eye, a broken chain. Garcia frowned, lifting it gently. As he pulled it out, the wall shuddered again, this time more pronounced, as though reacting to the removal. A soft, grinding sound followed. The mortar around the three suspect bricks began to shift, loosening like sand under pressure. Bricks above and below moved, creating a widening gap. Ajax growled low, hackles raised, but made no move to retreat. Garcia's flashlight beam revealed the emerging shape of a hidden door, its edges framed by jagged brickwork. The serpent, an eye etched on the cylinder, matched the latch on the newly revealed door. He pressed the cylinder into a circular slot and turned. With a resonant click, the hidden door swung inward. A plume of stale air hissed out, carrying whispers of decades-old secrets. Beyond lay a narrow stairwell, descending into darkness deeper than any passage he'd yet discovered. Garcia swallowed, gripping Ajax's collar. The dog's brown eyes met his, steady and unflinching. Ahead, the shifting mortar closed behind them like a living thing, sealing their entry into the prison's most concealed depths. And in that moment, Garcia understood the old inmate's warnings had only scratched the surface of Ironwood's buried truths. The stairwell was narrow and steep, each step carved from rough-hewn stone slick with moisture. Garcia descended with Ajax at his side, the dog's padded paws soundless against the ancient rock. The air grew colder, heavier, carrying a faint metallic tang that set Garcia's teeth on edge. At the bottom, the passage opened into a low-ceilinged chamber lit by a lone flickering bulb hanging from a rusted chain. The beam revealed claw marks gouged deep into the stone walls, ragged grooves that spoke of desperate struggle. Ajax growled, hackles raised, nose pressed to the ground as he followed a dark stain that dripped along the floor toward a narrow tunnel. Garcia's flashlight caught a glint on the wall. A rusted iron shackle bolted into the stone, its chain link broken clean in two. Beside it lay fragments of bone, bleached and brittle. The prisoner's whispers returned in Garcia's mind, and the weight of the hidden history pressed upon him. He crouched to inspect the claw marks, tracing them with trembling fingertips. Each gouge began at waist height, as though someone, or something, had tried to climb the wall, fingers scraping stone in a futile attempt to escape. The grooves ended abruptly near a crude grate set into the floor. Ajax sniffed the grate and scratched at it with a single paw. A faint breeze rose from beneath, carrying soft, echoing sounds, a distant scratching, like claws against stone, repeated in hesitant rhythm. Garcia pried at the grate with his flashlight's handle. The metal groaned, and the grate shifted just enough for a slender arm to slip through. He shone his beam downward, revealing a pit choked with debris, broken chains, torn clothing, and muddy footprints that led to a deeper abyss. Ajax whimpered, peering into the darkness. Garcia swallowed, heart thundering. A guttural sound rose from below, half growl, half moan. Fingers, pale and frantic, gripped the grate's edge, dusting Garcia's palm as they sought purchase. The scratching intensified into a frantic clawing, and the air filled with a wet, rasping breath. Garcia steadied himself, voice firm. "It's okay. I'm here to help." The grate rattled violently, and a single bone-white hand burst through, claws flexing against the stone lip. Ajax bristled, ready to defend, but Garcia reached down, brushing dirt from the trembling fingers. In that moment, the chamber's history revealed itself fully. Those who'd been buried beneath the bricks were still fighting to be free, and now they had an ally above. The man who emerged from the pit was gaunt, his eyes hollow but sharp with recognition. His clothes hung in tatters, stained with decades of grime. Garcia knelt, offering his hand. The prisoner hesitated, then grasped it, pulling himself onto the cold stone floor. Ajax nosed the man's shoulder, offering a reassuring nudge. The prisoner touched the dog's fur, eyes misting. "Ajax," he whispered, voice cracking. "He saved me." Garcia directed the beam toward a ledge where the man sat, swaying. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Aldridge," the prisoner rasped. "Samuel Aldridge. I was a guard here once." He coughed, head dropping. 50 years ago." Garcia's breath caught. "You were locked down here?" Aldridge nodded, eyes distant. "I uncovered the black vault after the riot. They told me to seal it, forget what I saw. I refused." He closed his fist, knuckles whitening. "So they sent me down to join the others. Left me to rot." He rose slowly, leaning on a broken shackle. "They thought I'd break, give up names. But I survived." He gestured to the claw marks. "These walls heard everything. The men who died, the secrets they carried. I carved messages in the stone when I could, hoping someone would find them." Garcia shone his light on one set of deep scratches, letters nearly worn away. "Remember US." Aldridge traced the words with his fingertip. "No one ever did, until you." His gaze shifted to the grate. "They sealed me in here after they filled the tunnels. I watched them brick it up one by one." He pointed to a faint seam in the far wall. "That's the way out. But I never had a key." Garcia pressed a hand to Aldridge's shoulder. "You do now." He revealed the freedom key and fitted into a small lock set into the stone beside the grate, an ancient mechanism Aldridge had missed in his weakened state. The latch clicked, and the grate rose. Sunlight from the corridor lighted the chamber as Aldridge pulled himself through. He paused at the threshold, looking back at Garcia and Ajax. "Thank you," he said hoarsely, "for hearing our whispers." As he climbed toward freedom, Garcia realized that Aldridge's tale was more than history. It was a warning. The prison's darkest sins could not stay buried forever, and those who survived its depths carried the power to bring the truth into the light. The grate clanged shut behind Aldridge, sealing his passage but leaving the corridor door ajar. Garcia shone his flashlight down the newly revealed tunnel. The air was stale, tinged with mildew and the distant promise of freedom. Ajax padded forward, nose low, leading Garcia through the yawning archway. The passage was wider here, its walls lined with iron brackets that once supported gas lamps. Faded arrows etched into the stone pointed left and right, accompanied by tally marks, evidence of prisoners counting days or escape attempts. Garcia traced one arrow with his fingertip, noting it pointed toward the ancient warden's office, long since demolished. He followed Ajax around a bend, and the tunnel narrowed again, forcing him to crouch as he advanced. The dog pressed close, ever vigilant. Garcia's flashlight revealed a series of low steps carved into the rock, leading upward toward a faint glow. He could hear the hum of electricity and distant voices, sounds of the prison's modern systems. At the top of the steps, a small metal door loomed, concealed behind a false wall in the maintenance corridor. The cracked paint and fresh grout around its frame marked its recent disturbance. Garcia tested the handle, unlocked. He eased the door open, stepping silently into the dimly lit service tunnel that ran parallel to the main hallway. Ajax slipped past him and paused at a junction marked staff only. Garcia crouched behind the dog's muscular frame, peering through a narrow gap. A lone guard stood with his back turned, adjusting a security panel. His gait was casual, unaware that Davis, the technician, had gone missing days ago. Garcia exhaled softly. The secret passage had delivered him from the prison's forgotten underworld straight back into its beating heart. He keyed his radio in a whisper. "Morales, I've got sight of a guard. Davis is compromised." He paused, waiting. Morales' reply crackled, confirming a takedown team en route. Garcia stepped forward, Ajax at his side. The tunnel behind him offered no refuge. Its secrets were now shared. Ahead lay danger and the promise of justice. As the door swung shut behind them, The iron brackets overhead groaned, and the echoes of the secret passage faded into the rhythms of Ironwood's guarded halls. The moon hung low outside the east wing's barred windows, its pale light spilling across the polished iron doors of the solitary confinement cells. Garcia and Ajax crouched in the maintenance tunnel's mouth, watching the guard patrol make its rounds. The corridor's fluorescent bulbs had flickered off unexpectedly. Whether sabotage or simple failure, Garcia couldn't tell, but moonlight carved stark slashes of silver across the floor. Garcia eased forward. Ajax pressed close, silent as shadows. They passed cell after cell, each door stamped with a number and locked tight. The air smelled faintly of antiseptic and despair. As they moved deeper, the moonlight illuminated a series of claw marks on the nearest door. 3 deep gouges, fresh and raw. Ajax growled low, nostrils flaring. Garcia's pulse quickened. He reached in his pocket and withdrew the key labeled Block D, solitary. It fit the lock with a soft click. The door swung open, revealing a sterile chamber with a single cot and a small barred window. Moonlight pooled on the bare concrete floor. Inside, a figure huddled in the corner, thin, shivering, eyes wide with fear. Garcia knelt, offering the man water from his canteen. Ajax nosed forward, offering reassurance. The man's lips trembled as he spoke. They moved him. They're transferring him tonight. Garcia exchanged a glance with Ajax. Tom was slipping away. He led the prisoner into the corridor, guiding him toward the secret door. Moonlight gilded the iron bars as they passed, silhouettes stretching long and thin. At the tunnel entrance, the prisoner hesitated. "Thank you," he whispered, "for the moonlight." Outside, the inmate transport van rumbled to life. Garcia peered through the cell block window, catching the headlights as they swept past the doors. The prisoner he'd just freed would be hidden in a safe house before dawn, though Garcia knew many others remained trapped. Ajax let out a single, triumphant bark that echoed between the iron doors. Garcia smiled, voice soft. "One more free before sunrise, boy." They slipped back into the tunnel as the moon dipped below the horizon and the corridor lights flickered back to life. In the interplay of light and steel, Garcia realized the prison's dreams were as shifting as the moon's shadows. Some prisoners would find freedom, others would remain for another night. But as long as Ajax's howl and moonlight graced those iron doors, hope would endure. The morning shift began with sunlight filtering through barred windows, turning dust motes into golden specks drifting in the air. Garcia returned to the cell block, heart heavy despite the early hour. Ajax padded beside him, ears perked for any disturbance. At the base of the east wall, where the hidden door to the secret passage rested, Garcia knelt and ran his fingers along the cracked mortar. A thin stain traced downward, like a tear in the foundation of the prison itself, where water had seeped through, carrying rust from unseen iron supports. He pressed a finger to the stain. The dampness clung to his glove. He rose as footsteps echoed above. Maintenance workers arrived to seal the bricks, unaware of what lay behind. Garcia watched as mortar was smeared across the seam, covering it in fresh cement. His fists clenched. Each stroke buried another piece of truth. Ajax nudged his side, reminding him of the lives he'd saved and the secrets he'd uncovered. Garcia turned and made his way to the warden's office. He carried a small packet of the clay-like mortar he'd scraped off, a sample of untainted history. In the office's soft glow, he laid it before Warden Caldwell and unspooled the story. Hidden cells, whispered tales, claw marks, and the old prisoner's rescue. Caldwell's face remained impassive as he leaned back in his leather chair. When Garcia finished, the warden tapped his pen on the desk. "These passages predate my tenure," Caldwell said quietly. "Some things were meant to stay buried." He gestured to the mortar sample. "Yet tears seep through every wall. You've proven that." Garcia met his gaze. "We can't undo the past, but we can prevent new crimes." Caldwell studied the sample, then nodded slowly. "I'll authorize an official excavation. The truth needs light." As Garcia left the office, Ajax at his heels, he paused at the corridor's end. The workers had finished. No trace of a seam remained. Yet in his palm, the mortar sample felt like proof of the prison's bleeding past. Outside, inmates lined the yard, their murmurs rising with the dawn. Garcia watched them, heart-tight with resolve. Tears in the foundation of Ironwood Penitentiary had been sealed over, but by exposing them, he'd begun to heal wounds long ignored. And with each uncovering, hope grew for those still held within its walls. Gleaming brass keys clicked softly as Garcia unlocked the warden's safe late that night. He retrieved a bound ledger, stamped watchman's log, and a small, steel box etched with the prison's crest. Ajax nosed at his side, waiting. At the desk, in the surveillance room, Garcia flipped through yellowed pages. The watchman's entries, dating back to the 1920s, spoke of routine inspections and of odd occurrences. Unexplained noises beneath the east wing, missing maintenance men, and midnight prayers whispered through the bars. One entry, dated June 3rd, 1928, stood out. The watchman wrote of a secret door he'd opened, describing a hidden corridor and an iron grate through which he'd heard a man pleading for help. The next page was torn away. Ajax whined, nudging the steel box. Garcia lifted the lid to find a faded photograph tucked inside. A young guard in an old-style uniform, hand resting on Ajax's ancestor, a wolfhound known as Sentinel. The guard's eyes held both pride and regret. Scrawled on the back was a name, Elias Monroe, Watchman, 1928. Garcia traced the letters with a gloved fingertip. He read aloud, voice low. He found the passage but couldn't bear its weight. Ajax pawed the box, revealing a second item, a ring, tarnished and bearing the prison's crest. He slipped the ring onto his finger, feeling its cold weight. The watchman's final entry lay beneath the photograph, written in a shaky hand. I lock it behind me. May God forgive what I've done. A distant alarm blared through the penitentiary's PA system. An emergency drill or a real breach? Garcia couldn't tell. He pocketed the ledger and box, pausing only to glance at the monitor. In the yard below, shadows moved in patterns that didn't match any patrol. Ajax growled low, hackles rising. Garcia rose, determination hardening in his jaw. The watchman's discovery had been buried for nearly a century, left to rot in forgotten pages and hidden compartments. But now, with the ledger and the ring in his possession, Garcia understood the burden Elias Monroe carried and the debt owed to those still trapped beneath the walls. He clicked off the lights, slung the box into his coat, and headed for the secret passage's entrance. Whatever the drill was, it would shield his departure. And Ajax, ever faithful, led the way. Moonlight filtered through high windows as Garcia returned to the east wall, the watchman's log and steel box tucked safely in his coat. Ajax padded beside him, nose low to the ground. Under the glow of a single bulb, the wall seemed unchanged, solid, unwavering. Yet Garcia's fingers found new microfractures in the mortar, hairline cracks that hadn't been there before. He knelt and brushed away dust, revealing initials carved into the brick. Yim, matching the watchman's ledger. Beneath them, fresh fissures snaked outward, as if the prison itself was reacting to Elias Monroe's unbared secrets. Ajax whined softly, pressing his head against Garcia's hand. Garcia pressed his ear to the wall. Faint echoes, voices clinking chains, drifted from the hidden corridor. The fissures widened slightly, dust cascading to the floor. He rose, heart pounding, and signaled to Ajax. Together, they pressed on the loosened bricks. With a collective groan, the wall shifted, exposing the crawlspace entry once more. The cracks rattled like nervous laughter, revealing the secret door behind them. Garcia paused, shining his light on the fractures. The prison's facade had cracked, its legacy finally breaking apart from within. He crawled inside, Ajax slipping through beside him. The tunnel felt different now, warmer, alive with possibility. The dog's paws pressed into the dirt, stirring up faint footprints that led toward the ancient stairwell. Garcia followed, the watchman's ring cold against his palm. At the foot of the stairs, he paused. The claw marks on the walls seemed sharper, more urgent, as though urging him onward. Each step creaked underfoot, and the air hummed with anticipation. Above, a distant door slammed. Guards on patrol, unaware of the fractures they'd caused by reopening history. In the chamber beyond, the iron plate of the hidden keyhole lay open. The ring fit neatly into a small indentation beside it, echoing Elias Monroe's final act. Garcia turned the ring. The brick panel clattered open, and Ajax bounded through into the archive's hidden depths. Garcia followed, flashlight illuminating rows of secrets. The cracks in the legacy had led him here, to truths long buried in dust and darkness, now ready to be revealed. And as he stepped into the chamber's half-light, he knew Ironwood Penitentiary would never be whole again. Garcia found Ajax curled beside a rusted desk in the archive's hidden room. Stacks of yellowed records and leather-bound ledgers lay strewn across the surface. In the far corner, Warden Caldwell stood alone, silhouette rigid under the flickering light. His sharp gaze softened as Garcia entered. Caldwell's voice was laced with regret. "You shouldn't have come down here." He stepped forward, shoulders drooping. "I've kept this prison's darkest secrets longer than I've been warden." Garcia's hand hovered near his holster, but he stayed his reach. Ajax lifted his head, ears poised. Caldwell sank onto a broken chair, picking up a dusty ledger titled Keeper's Records. "Before me, there was Keeper Rathmore," the warden continued, voice trembling. "He inherited these passages from Monroe, sworn to guard them." He flipped to a page scrawled in spidery ink, a confession of cruelty of guards who tormented prisoners in the hidden cells. Caldwell's eyes met Garcia's. Rathmore claimed these cells were for the worst of the worst, but he turned them into torture chambers. He believed he was purging evil. When I arrived, I discovered what he'd done. I swore to seal it off forever and protect the institution's reputation. Garcia tightened his jaw. "You buried evidence. Let people suffer." Caldwell nodded, tears glistening. "I thought I was doing the right thing, preserving order. But each time I saw another inmate go missing, I remembered their screams in the walls." He stood, pressing a hand to the desk. "I'm the Keeper's true successor. I should have come forward." Ajax rose and pressed against Caldwell's leg, offering quiet comfort. Caldwell scooped up the ledger and handed it to Garcia. "Take this. Bring their stories into the open. Let the world know what happened here." Garcia opened the ledger. Names, dates, testimonies of those forced into darkness. He slipped it into his coat. Caldwell's voice cracked as he gazed at the wall's brick patterns. "May this confession be the key to real justice." Garcia nodded, resolve settling in his chest. He clicked on his radio, voice firm. "This is Garcia. I'm initiating a full report on the hidden cells and those who fell prey to them. Stand by for directives." As Ajax settled back at Caldwell's feet, Garcia glanced at the warden. In the archive's dim light, the Keeper's confession had rewritten Ironwood's legacy and set the stage for truth to walk free. A cold draft curled around Garcia's ankles as he descended the iron ladder leading from the hidden archive down into uncharted tunnels. Ajax stayed close, fur bristling at every echo that bounced off the stone. The Keeper's records and Watchman's log were secured in his coat, weight of their confessions pressing on his shoulders. The passage opened into a sprawling network of corridors, arched ceilings of ancient brick, walls scarred by claw marks and etched initials. Flickering bulbs hung sporadically, their wiring exposed and humming with uncertain power. A map pinned to the damp wall caught Garcia's eye. A crude diagram of the labyrinth with red crosses marking dead ends and a single green that labeled Sanctum. He traced a finger along the route toward the Sanctum, where the final hearings once took place in long-forgotten days. Steps coaxed them deeper, each one more treacherous, stones underfoot slick with moisture. The dog's paws made hushed clicks, and his tail twitched at every intersection. They reached a four-way junction where the map indicated an old supply room. Garcia shone his flashlight down each branch. To the left, a barricaded gate barred the way, Ahead, the corridor curved into darkness. To the right, a low doorway framed by grimy walls, and behind them, the ladder's glow faded. Ajax growled softly, tilting his head toward the right-hand passage. Garcia nodded, following the dog into the narrow hallway. The air grew colder, carrying a distant rumble, dripping water or something more ominous. The walls closed in, and the light flickered until only the flashlight beam cut through the gloom. At a dead end, Garcia spotted a panel of bricks differing in hue. He pressed against it. Brick by brick shifted inward, revealing a hidden niche. Inside lay rusted lanterns and a leather satchel stamped with a battered crest. Clutching the satchel, he opened it to find journals of former prisoners, detailed accounts of their secret trials, their pleas for mercy, their final prayers. A distant clatter startled them. Ajax lunged forward, nails grinding on stone. Garcia read the first entry. A man condemned without trial, his fate sealed by the keeper's hand. He stowed the journal and retraced steps, each turn echoing with the voices of those who had wandered the labyrinth. As they neared the sanctum's entrance, a heavy oaken door warped by time, Garcia realized the full scope of Ironwood's underworld, a labyrinth designed to imprison more than bodies, created to bury truth itself. And now, with each recovered testimony, the maze was unraveling from the inside. The oaken door at the end of the corridor was swollen with age, its iron bands rusted and lock inoperative. Garcia pressed his shoulder against the wood, and it groaned open to reveal a domed chamber carved directly into bedrock.